the chair of the commission. When called on, applicants and speakers will come to the front podium to speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium. Please do not approach the podium until it has been vacated by the previous speaker. Please speak in the microphone and identify yourself and provide your address for the record when you begin speaking. Address your comments, questions, and testimony to the commission. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. It is unnecessary to repeat testimony previously given by others. Citizens may address the commission on agenda items by responding to chair's call for speakers during discussion on each item and signing the speaker's log at the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item. The chair or presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the committee and/or remove that person from the council chambers if that person commits any disorderly or disruptive behavior. Please see the agenda for more information about these requirements. If you parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary School or the Arts District parking garage immediately south of City Hall, staff can provide you with a validation ticket. The agenda and documents are located at okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You then would select the Urban Design Commission meeting and then click on the agenda item, and relevant documents will come up below the item. Please see the agenda for additional information regarding procedures and the review processes. Keith?
Holmes?
Here.
Apatone?
Here.
Black?
Here.
Cow? Here. Jarnico?
Here.
Dixon Oso?
Here.
We have quorum.
Excellent. All right, moving into today's meeting, we have the approval of the minutes from December 18th, 2024. Do we have any comments or motion on this?
I motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All right, minutes have been approved. Today, there are no cases withdrawn, no continuance requests, and on the consent docket, do we have any additional consideration by anyone? All right, moving into cases for individual consideration.
We do need a motion to approve the consent docket.
Gotcha.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent docket.
Excellent.
I'll second that motion.
I'll have to give you a yes.
All right, consent docket has been approved. Cases for individual consideration today, starting off with UDCA-24-00027 at 2416 Northwestern Avenue. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is a proposed restaurant at the southeast corner of Northwest 24th Street and Northwestern Avenue. It's directly located behind the O'Reilly Auto Parts, which is fronting on Northwest 23rd Street. And it is part of the NG and Uptown, sorry, not design. This case was pretty complicated when it first came into us, and it was in fact so complicated that it had to go get a SPUD first before we could bring it up and consider it. There were a lot of complications in the original submittal with respect to what setbacks would apply and what uses were allowed, so on and so forth. And as a result, the only way to resolve those issues was through the approval of a SPUD. The SPUD was approved for this site. And so the effective date of the SPUD has transpired and passed, and the zoning place. And we've reviewed the project against the provisions of that SPUD document. The only issue that is, by and large, it is 100% in compliance with the provisions, regulations, and guidelines that are contained in the SPUD document. However, it is still subject to the rules and regulations of the urban design overlay, and the only issue we identified in our review of it, the building is largely blank, facing both Northwest 24th Street and Northwestern Avenue. In the extreme case on Western, there's somewhat less than 4% amount of glazing facing the street there. And we do have guidelines in the UD overlay that discuss talking about having your building oriented to the street and engaging the streetscape and allowing for interaction between the uses that are going on inside the building and the uses and the activity that's going along in the streetscape. With so few windows on both the front and the side that are exposed to the two adjacent streets, we felt it was appropriate to comply with those guidelines to ask the applicant to revisit that issue and see if there was any way to increase the amount of glazing on those two facades. We have identified in the staff report some of the rationale behind why the building was designed this way and why there is so little glazing on the building, and that is all based on the input we received from the applicant, the architect, through his, from the client through his architect on this project. So there are some valid reasons that would help explain the rationale for why there is so little glass, but there is an opportunity, particularly at the north end of the building, to explore at least a little bit more glazing on particularly the west facade. And as a result, we have asked or added a condition to our recommendation for approval that the applicant be asked to revisit that issue and see if he can't come back with a little bit more glazing on the west facade. With that, our presentation is completed. We're prepared to respond to any questions that the commission may have.
If we don't have any questions for staff, is there an applicant or representative available?
Yes, they're here.
Right.
Daniel Douthit, Rollock Studio, on behalf of Milieu LLC, 1141 West Sheridan Avenue. Do we have any of the renderings we could look at? Or maybe a floor plan?
They're in the packets, so we don't have them for the screen.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's up there now.
Okay, thank you. So as you can tell from the floor plan, the building is primarily kitchen. This is a grab and go restaurant, so wall space is at a premium for racks, storage, power, vent hoods. The owner believes in feng shui as an organizational principle for the building, so they don't want any openings on the west facade. The one we have put there was certainly a compromise they are not particularly happy with. But the feng shui setup says fire goes here, water goes here, then there's a miscellaneous corner for everything else. I know it's odd, but that's where we are. I think for the most part, you know, it's very clear where the entry is from the perspectives and the renderings. I don't know how much more glass we could really add. I would also like to note the budget on this is incredibly modest. I think they will be hard pressed to reach it. So adding more glazing is probably not a good financial option for them if you want to see this project at all.
All right. Any questions for our applicant?
I do have a couple of questions. I may have missed the business idea. It's a restaurant, correct?
It's a grab and go.
Oh, grab and go.
Grab and go, yeah. There's no real seating.
So is there we didn't see any parking plan?
There's no parking. There's no parking required by the SPUD or in the UDC. There's an ample street parking throughout this area. There's also the giant church parking lot, which sits vacant 95% of the year. Might be worth having a conversation with them and seeing if we can lease a space or two.
And no drive-through, correct?
No drive-through. Western is an arterial street, which means we are limited on curb cuts. We actually cannot have a curb cut off 24th. We would be too close. We'd have to get a variance. I think that would be a hard variance to sell.
I appreciate the feng shui comment, but from the standpoint of the exterior side, there is a missing component of what needs to happen from respect to the pedestrian and their experience of the building. I don't know that glass cost comes into our conversation, but in respect of it, something should be done to, I think, to give some kind of pedestrian scale and articulation on that western facade. I don't know that it necessarily has to be glass. But right now, it's a stark wall that would set precedent that's probably different than what we would impose on other individuals. I know that in the past, it's been required to add glass that is false and have drywall on the inside. You've already expressed that glass in and of itself doesn't work from a cost standpoint, so that seems to be even worse because now you've got the entire condition of a glazed system and an exterior wall system, so you're doubling up. But has there been any thought about what could be done to the exterior wall treatment for at least a portion of it to where it's not just a single window on a blank wall? And I'm feeling like that's something that's probably, we're not going to be able to figure it out here, and you'd have to almost, if something like that happened, it'd be condition of the approval to be worked out with staff.
Yeah, the owner's intent was a very simple design. One material, one color. The details are very elegant and understated. The reveals you're seeing on the elevations are aluminum, preformed, welded up, clean and simple. And some of the renderings, you can see that there are very slight indents on that west wall with some LED lights to kind of light it at night.
Yep.
It's understated. It is not Scooter's Coffee, you know, it's a box for food.
Yeah, I actually appreciate
Yeah.
that part of it. There's still a precedential consideration that would need to work into this. You're saying that the reason why extra glass is not going to be added is because of a cost component, not because of the simplicity of the building. Maybe the two of them are tied together, but
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One is the owner's belief in the feng shui, and there's, you know, energy coming from the west is not what they like. They would prefer there to be no openings on the west facade. The one window we've added is certainly a compromise, and they're not particularly thrilled with it. Also note that as soon as we start, you know, if you're imagining that the whole corner is glass, this is a wood structure, automatically I've lost all my shear. I had to go back and put in a moment frame at that corner. So there's steel, there's glazing, there's a whole host of structural problems to make this work. And again, the budget is very, very modest, guys. I think it'll be a stretch to get here.
you have a glazed corner?
Yeah, just,
I mean, I'm not seeing a glazed corner on there. I'm seeing a solid.
if we were to make the entire west corner
no,
glazing.
definitely not. Okay, I
I'm-
understand. Not asking for that. No,
Okay.
and I would understand the cost implication of doing something like that.
Right.
Pretty big deal.
And I don't know if I agree with Michael that it's 4% glazing on the west facade. I would have to go in and check. I feel it's a bit more, maybe 5.
Well, I was going to ask the question: is there a number that is? Would there be a request from staff as far as a percent?
Well, in the UD, we don't have any, in a lot of the design districts, they do have a minimum amount of transparency required. We don't have those standards here in UD. but we do have the guideline that talks about having your building oriented to the street and having some, interactivity between what's happening inside the building and what's happening in the streetscape. I think the biggest hurdle that we have with this particular project is the amount of space that the kitchen takes up and how much of that wall it chews up, and the fact that when you're in a kitchen you have all kinds of things that are lining the wall that make it difficult to work windows into the plan. And so we understand that. We thought perhaps maybe some spandrel glass could be used. Maybe a couple of pieces, further south on that elevation, that west elevation, to help. Obviously, that does not promote interactivity between what's going on in the kitchen part of the building and what's going on in the streetscape, but it does at least make the building look like it's somewhat sort of oriented to the street. Right now, it just looks like, he said, a box for food.
Yeah, it's supposed to be simple and understated. That's the owner's intent, that's their wish.
And because it is a guideline, there's no variances required, and the commission does have the latitude to either waive the guideline or, vary the guideline or, ignore the guideline altogether without having the need for a variance to be processed. So you do have the flexibility to allow it to be approved as is, but we thought there should be maybe one more attempt at trying to either incorporate some spandrel glass on this west elevation, or maybe give a little bit more glass at the northwest corner of the building on the west facade.
There's quite a bit of landscaping on the north side of the building, pretty low profile, but are they even with landscape as an option, there's a few trees, it looks like, that would be adjacent to the building. Is even landscaping something that they like some type of screen or something, or would that mess up the design feng shui of that element?
A screen on the west side.
Yeah,
Is
they've
that
done
what
a
you're
great
asking?
job with the street
Just something
trees.
that just some sort of texture, because as of now it's also a solid singular color stucco wall.
Yeah.
But I didn't know even if landscaping was an option of.
Like a living wall, is that what you're thinking?
It doesn't have to be a living wall, but a living wall is something that does, address some type of. I don't.
And they're kind of faded out in the renderings. We've got Yupon hollies there because we've got the wonderful overhead power lines. So it's an interesting site. It certainly has some constraints.
Right.
I would like to note for years and years and years, a crummy little house sat in the back here that was a restaurant. And it had no windows and a gravel parking lot, and I would not call it the best urban neighbor. I don't think the best urban neighbor is O'Reilly's just to the south either, with no windows and a sea of parking and no trees.
One other question, like the dumpsters, also on the south side of the site.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a plan to use the sidewalk to basically access that?
It's going to open into the alley. We've got one of the guy wires already relocated, so it'll work.
I mean from the inside, like literally taking out trash from the kitchen to the back.
They'll have to go around the front of the building and then take
Okay.
it through the doors in the alley.
Okay.
They'll more than likely cut through the grass.
Okay.
So, on one of these I'm looking at, it shows that you have hollies, landscaping. Oh, God, Jesus. Hello? On one of these, it shows that there's landscaping all along this west side. Am I seeing that incorrectly? The Yopon holly?
So the city requires under power lines, it doesn't get taller than 15 feet. And that's a species that won't Again, we're going to have street trees every 25 foot on Center. That's in the UDC, both on 24th and Western. We're going to have screening against the residential property. So it'll be a very well landscaped property, just simply because it has to be according to the code.
Yeah.
Personally, I appreciate the ambition of the idea. It's different. You know, in a lot of instances, just to like things you see in the area is you'll see murals on something like this, and I think it would be a different conversation to add interest. And so the fact that nothing wants to go on it, I think stands a little bit apart. And, you know, the idea itself is unique now as well. I just, as we get proposals these days on sites like this in this type of area, I lean toward, just because of the time and all of it, not letting this opportunity go of having something there versus nothing. And while I still think the bones of what's here, whether the next, say if this succeeds, it's great. I think that's, the area will like it. If it doesn't succeed, then I think the next person would have the option, but the bones that are put in place on this are unique and ambitious, and you have to get a spud to get it. They could have done anything else. And so I would actually, I'm okay with letting this client have what they want and staking their place in the neighborhood, because it's also the lighting on it, the glass, the way it's done, it is tasteful, and the landscaping's tasteful as well. Like there's a modern flair to this that's unique too, that is interesting. So I see the vision. You know, we all have our own objective taste, and there's things that are different about it, but it sounds like this client, this is what they want, and I don't think that they went at this without an idea of design. I think they put design behind this idea, and I believe that it's been thought out pretty well for all I got.
I think your comments are correct. I think we just have to be really clear that we're not establishing precedent based on the fact that somebody asked for a blank wall or somebody asked for something that's a little bit in conflict with the guidelines. This is actually something in which that blank wall was intended to be there as a part of the overall vision. The subtle niche, the lighting, kind of this stark element. I'm thinking about there are some AI award-winning structures in this city that have no windows at all until you get to the inside of the building. So, I mean, if we're going to do this, and I hear what you're saying, and I kind of appreciate where the client has requested you take them, but it's really not precedent for the sake of the future individual coming and asking for a blank wall.
I was going to say that I actually do agree. I appreciate the consideration of scale and form in the context of the community that surrounds it. I think that's critically important, even more than architectural design. But architectural design, I feel, is sort of cutting edge and aligns with what's happening in that area. And I also appreciate the landscaping as a barrier to pedestrians along the blank wall. I even thought maybe we can put a mural there, but that's not what they want. That's not part of the design. That's not part of the intent. And so I can appreciate that as well.
I think I would have to go get a variance since we didn't actually include murals in the SPUD. They are a use group, believe it or not. Is that?
They're not anymore, actually.
Not anymore? They removed it?
Sign code made that no longer a use.
So we can put a huge sign there.
We can talk about that.
That's going to be exactly the opposite of what you just sold us on.
I
so
know it is.
No
I
way.
know. I know.
No way, no how.
I wish they were here. They have a restaurant in Edmond, and they work 5 p.m. till 2 in the morning is when it's open. Cafe de Taipei. If you don't think they're going to be successful, you need to go up there and have their food because it will say otherwise.
I do understand precedent and it's a slippery slope. You know, I think about, you guys, you know, I'm on the soapbox all day, every day about Cottage District and the fact that we've allowed that to get away from us, and there's probably 1 or 2 cottages left. And so it's difficult when you're thinking about who's going to come after this project and asked for the same thing. I just think that the context of it all, the scale and form of the building, speak more highly of what you all are trying to do in that area than the glazing on the west side. So.
Do you have any other comments or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the project meets the regulations and guidelines of the Urban Design Overlay District zoning ordinance as referenced in sections C and D of the staff report.
I'd like to second.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, it's passed. Moving on to item. What's that? Oh. Moving on to the next item, we have UDCA-24-00038 at 2328 Northwest 23rd Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is a project to construct an addition to an existing auto repair business at 2328 Northwest 23rd Street. It's out at the western end of the Northwest 23rd Uptown corridor. It's directly across the street from Shepherd Center, formerly known as Shepherd Mall. With this particular project, we've been working with the applicant for an extended period of time to try and resolve a number of the issues that we've identified with this project. The first one was pretty easy to deal with because in addition to an existing structure, it is exempt from the maximum setback requirement that applies in the UD corridor, which is a maximum of 10 feet. So in the corridor, it's a pedestrian-oriented corridor, at least for the most part, to the eastern portion of the 23rd Street, not so much in this area. But because of that orientation, they do want the buildings put up to the front of the lot, oriented to the street, much like the last discussion on the last case. But in this particular situation, there is a provision in the code with regard to that setback that does exempt additions to existing structures. So in this particular case, the applicant is not obligated on the front of the building. Now, to be honest with you, we did play around with the idea up in the front of the lot so that the building itself would block off a view from 23rd Street of all the parked cars and so on and so forth. And we thought that would be a better look for the design aspect of Northwest. A whole another issue, which is similar to the one we just discussed on the last case, and that is having the building that faces the street oriented to the street, and it doesn't make any sense to put a 3-bay service structure up at the front of the lot when you can't put glass around the front of it. It makes sense in front of a service bay for an automotive repair business. So we ended up moving back to the idea of exempt requirement and placing the building where it was originally intended, which is at the south end of the lot abutting the alley. The second regulation that we have to deal with is the parking. With the addition of the new structure on the south end of the lot, it chews up a good portion of the available land for parking, and probably right now under the current code and under the current conditions, they have enough parking for the building that they have there today. However, when you add another 1,500 square feet of building to the site, you have triggers more parking requirement, and it brings up the parking code requirement to 10 off-street stalls. At this point, with the new building being added, we were only able to work with the applicant to come up with a total of 8 parking stalls on the site, including 1 ADA stall. But there is a provision in the code that does allow you to reduce the amount of required off-street parking by up to 20% by using a variety of different mechanisms, and one of those being the addition of bicycle parking stalls, so that with every 2 bicycle parking stalls that you provide on the site, you can reduce your parking requirement by 1 automotive parking stall. So that's what the applicant has done in this case. He's added a total of 4 bicycle parking stalls out in front of the building near 23rd Street. And because of that, he's legally allowed to reduce his parking requirement from 8 stalls down to, from 10 stalls down to 8, which is what we have for you on that. The third issue is a guideline, and it's the same guideline we talked about with respect to the last case, and that is the orientation of the building and the comfort, pedestrian comfort, safety, and interest that is a desired guideline, having the building oriented to the street. So the addition is kind of off the table because it's way at the back of the site on the south end. I do have a portion of the existing structure that, oh, how did I get back on this? Sorry, let me get to the right case. So you have this existing portion of the building where the cursor is, and there's just one window there, and there is no door facing 23rd Street, door facing North Cross Avenue, the side street on the corner lot. We did talk about the possibility of doing some revisions to this front portion of the building to meet the regulations. However, due to the nature of the business and the fact that it doesn't really rely much on foot traffic from the sidewalk, so on and so forth, because it's auto repair, and due to the fact also that through our working with the applicant on this case, we've resolved a number of things that are detrimental to the pedestrian orientation or the pedestrian streetscape along 23rd Street, and that includes, among other things, the addition of a 10-foot wide landscape parkway at the front of the site that would be heavily landscaped with not only street trees but also shrubbery to help shield the view of the parked cars in the parking lot at the front of the site. We also have eliminated this driveway that you see in this shot right here. It's being taken away, and it will be replaced with new curb and gutter and a new sidewalk that will go through there. And that's a good thing for a number of reasons. Number one, it's not consistent with the current codes with regard to separation of driveways from side streets, from the cross streets, which is right off the slide here to the right. So because it doesn't comply, it was a good thing to get rid of that. But the bonus is that we get a better streetscape along that part of the frontage of the property. They have added a walkway from the new sidewalk on 23rd that will lead through that landscape buffer in the front of the lot to the entry. So in case somebody does want to walk from the sidewalk on 23rd to the office of the auto repair business, they are able to do so. And we also are getting a new sidewalk per code that is being installed along the frontage, the western frontage along North Cross Avenue. And with that, there would be also landscaping between that sidewalk and the parking lot edge on that western frontage, also consistent with current code. So in terms of comparison from the current condition to what this will look like after the project's done, per the plans we've been shown, I think it's a tremendous improvement for pedestrian comfort, safety, and interest over what we have there today. So with that, we conclude our presentation. We're prepared to respond to any questions the commission may have, and the applicant is present if you have any questions for them.
Any questions? Applicant present? All right.
Good afternoon, Sam Senemar, Metco Builders, 2220 Rockport Road in Edmond. this is a split-face block building that we're proposing to the south end of this site. As Mr. Philbrick explained, we have agreed to do a lot of landscaping, a buffer between 23rd Street and the site, as well as east portion of or east side of or west side of the site, which is on Cross. And in addition, we add some parking spaces or some sidewalks. We will close one entrance, which is off of 23rd, and we will still keep the one off of Cross onto the side.
Any questions for the applicant? Assume there's no one present to, okay, I guess. Discussion.
Can I make a motion?
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the project meets the regulations and guidelines of the Urban Design Overlay District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report.
All right, it has been approved.
Thank you much.
All right, going into other business. I guess we're going to look at SPUD-1683 at 1229 Northwest 26th Street.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is a SPUD proposal for the project site on the east side of North Classen Boulevard between Northwest 26th and Northwest 27th. The site, on the northern half of the site, is occupied by the Chinatown grocery and restaurant that is there as well, with a parking lot that abuts Northwest 27th. It was cleared probably about 4, maybe 5 years ago. There used to be a camera shop there and a few other commercial businesses. And then further east along Northwest 26th Street, there was a 2-story residential apartment building that was also approved for demolition a while back. The reason this application is before you today is because there was already a SPUD on this site. I'm not sure, does it say in the report? Yeah, the SPUD was approved back in 2016, and at that time, the property owner had an entirely different concept for the south side of the property, and that was to have a 3-story event center with a parking lot on the corner of 26 and North Classen Boulevard. They've changed their minds now, and they have a better concept. They want to do an expansion or actually build essentially a new grocery store on the south side of the site. The problem is that the SPUD that was previously approved had limitations on the amount of square footage per floor, believe it or not. And that amount of square footage was, I think, 27,500 square feet, and the square footage of this building is 28,400 and something, I think. So because the SPUD that was previously approved limited the amount of square foot you could have on any floor, including the first, and also there was a bunch of other cleanup issues with respect to setbacks and some screening for various elements like trash enclosures and transformers and things like that. The applicant was encouraged to go back to the drawing board and come up with a new SPUD that would take care of rectifying all those conflicts between their proposed project and what the previous SPUD said they could do. So that's what we have here before you today. The language in the attached master design statement for the SPUD does address all the conflicts and makes them all go away, so that the project they have in mind for their CA, which will come back to you later, after the SPUD has its effective date, after it's approved by both the Planning Commission and City Council and then becomes effective, we will bring that back to you with a CA for your review. And that is actually the most important part, I think, as far as we're concerned, as far as the Commission is concerned, is that the SPUD does still make the project subject to all the provisions of the urban design overlay. So with that, we're going to conclude our presentation, and I'm prepared to respond to any questions that the Commission may have.
All right. Any questions for staff? Applicant available?
Hello, Holly Hunt, 400 Northwest 23rd Street, Sam Gresham Architects. And that was a perfect summation. I got brought into this project after about 2 different design concepts. But I was part of that original SPUD, and yes, we had this totally different building in mind. But this grocery store is bursting at the seams. We need more room. I think a grocery store suits this area very well. It's functioned very well. And the Golden Phoenix restaurant is also expanded into that space. So that's what this whole project is in reaction to. It is semantics, seemingly, that brought us all to amend this. We thought about amending. It was beyond what they could do. So here we are. Let's get the SPUD so it matches the new project. And yeah, and we'll be back to do a full presentation on the design and all of the concerns of the Urban Design Commission staff at that time. So we're just thrilled that the SPUD's being recommended for approval to the City Council, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll recommend approval of the application to the Planning Commission for a request to rezone from SPUD 913 to Simplified Plan Unit Development, SPUD 1683, that will develop in accordance with the NB Neighborhood Business District and the UD Urban Design Overlay District.
I'd like to second.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yes.
All right. It has been approved. All right, moving on to the next item. We have an election of officers, elect chair. So currently I am chair, and I would be willing to do it again. I don't know if this popped up, but if anyone else is, yeah.
So it sounds like you're willing to do it.
I'll do it, yeah.
Anybody else?
So we need a nomination. Someone
Right.
would motion to nominate.
I would like to put forward a motion to nominate Tyler Holmes as chair.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank y'all. All right, and then now elect a vice chair for this year.
So Sarah's not here to speak on her behalf. I personally love seeing these things rotate. I think it's good for every person to have the opportunity to be in the chair and the vice chair seats. So for the individuals who haven't served in that capacity yet, does anybody want to be a vice chair for this next year? Because I think that it's a really good thing to get to experience running the meeting when the chair is out of place.
So I think there's 3 people.
I'm looking at them and thinking, I don't know if I have the capacity. I would love to do that, but yeah.
I will do it if nobody else will do it. I'll probably need a little help.
I think the staff makes it pretty easy, having been there.
Yeah.
So we're going to make a motion? I'll make a motion to nominate Amy as vice chair.
I'll second that motion.
All right, congrats.
Do you get a crown or something? That's Tyler's crown.
You get to bang the gavel is what you get.
Okay.
That's the big perk.
Well, you're next in line, so.
And yes, we give you a script. Happy to answer any questions you all have about process being chair, but yeah, thank you both for continuing to serve, for volunteering to serve. We do expect in the next weeks to months to have some shifting around of membership perhaps as we've consolidated our design review bodies. So if that happens and people move from one commission to another, or we get new faces on this commission, and a couple of months go by, if people feel like it's appropriate to, we could always re-elect chair and vice chair if, new blood comes in and people want to take on, that kind of position, so.
The last thing, administrative approval through all the districts. This is kind of lumped as one, and if anyone has anything to pull out, but I don't think there's a motion on this, correct?
Right, no action to be taken, just reporting these all out to you guys.
Awesome. Okay, comments from planning staff?
I think that was my comment
Okay.
on, we're watching for some new appointments to each of our design review bodies. And we do anticipate, we've been hoping to get some new folks in on the design review commissions and then do our annual, now less than annual training based on the time that's passed. We want to use that as an opportunity also to do some orientation for everybody on the districts that they've absorbed into their commissions. Now that you all also see Scenic River and Stockyards, downtown also sees Bricktown. So more to come on that in the next couple of months.
Awesome, thank you. Any comments from commission members? All right, next meeting date is March 26, 2025.